The 10 tenets of liberal humanism. The first thing, naturally, is an attitude to literature itself. Good literature is of timeless significance. It somehow transcends the limitations and peculiarities of the age it was written in, and thereby speaks to what is constant in human nature. Such writing is not for an age but for all time, as said by Ben Jonson of Shakespeare. It is news which stay news, said by Ezra Pound's definition of literature. In short, good literature is timeless, transcendent, speaks to what is constant in human nature. 2. The second tenet. The second point is the logical consequence of the first. The literary text contains its own meaning within itself. It doesn't require any elaborate process of placing it within a context, whether this be socio-political, means the context of a particular social background or political situation, or literary, historical, whereby the work could be seen as the product of the literary influences of other writers or as shaped by the conventions of particular genres, or autobiographical, that is, as determined by the personal details of the author's life and thought. Of course, as scholars, most academics would assert the value of studying these contexts, but as critics, their adherence to the approach which insists upon the primacy and self-sufficiency of the words on the page commits them to the process which has been called on-site close reading. Essentially, this removes the text from all these contexts and presents it unseen for unaided explication by the trained mind. In short, literary text contains its own meaning, not in subordinate reference to a socio-political, literary, historical, or autobiographical context. Third tenet. To understand the text well, it must be detached from these contexts and studied in isolation. What is needed is the close, verbal analysis of the text without prior ideological assumptions or political preconditions, or indeed specific expectations of any kind, since all these are likely to interfere fatally with what the 19th century critic Matthew Arnold said was the true business of criticism: to see the object as in itself it really is. In short, text therefore studied in isolation without ideological assumptions or political conditions. Goal of close verbal analysis: to see the object as in itself it really is. Fourth tenet. Human nature is essentially unchanging. The same passions, emotions, and even situations are seen again and throughout human history. It follows that continuity in literature is more important and significant than innovation. Thus, a well-known 18th century definition of poetry maintains that it is what oft was thought but never so well expressed. In short, human nature unchanging, continuity valued over innovation. Fifth tenet of liberal humanism: individuality is something securely possessed with each of us as our unique essence. This transcends our environmental influences, and though individuality can change and develop, it can't be transformed. Hence, our uneasiness with those scenes which evolves a change of heart in a character so that the whole personality is shifted into a new dimension by force of circumstance. The miser is transformed and changes his ways, or the good man or woman becomes corrupted by wealth. Such scenes imply a malleability in the essence of character, which is at odds with this underlying assumption of English studies. These instances and scenes are quite common in Dickens. In short, individuality as essence securely possessed by each transcendent subject, distinct from forces of society, experience, and language. Sixth tenet. The purpose of literature is essentially the enhancement of life and the propagation of human values, but not in a programmatic way. If literature and criticism become overtly and directly political, they necessarily tend towards propaganda. And as Keats said, we distrust literature which has a palpable design upon us. That is, literature which too obviously wants to convert us or influence our views. In short, purpose of literature to enhance life in non-programmatic, non-propagandistic way. Seventh tenet. Form and content in literature must be fused in an organic way so that the one goes inevitably from the other. Literary form should not be like a decoration which is applied externally to a completed structure, imagery, for instance, or any other poetic form which is detachable from the substance of the work. In this way, rather than being integrated with it, is merely fanciful and not truly imaginative. The distinction made by Coleridge in the Biographia Literaria. In short, form and content fused organically in literature. Eighth, this point about organic form applies above all to sincerity. Sincerity comprising truth to experience, honesty towards the self, and the capacity for human empathy and compassion is a quality which resides within the language of literature. It isn't a fact or an intention behind the work which could be gleaned by comparing, say, a poet's view of an event with other more factual versions, or from discovering independent external information about an author's history or conduct. Rather, sincerity is to be discovered within the text in such matters as the avoidance of kitsch or of over-inflated forms of expression. In short, sincerity resides within the language of literature, noted by avoidance of kitsch or inflated style, so that the distance or difference between words and things is abolished. The ninth tenet of liberal humanism. Again, the next idea follows from the previous one. What is valued in literature is the silent showing and demonstrating of something rather than the explaining or saving of it. Hence, ideas as such are worthless in literature until given the concrete embodiment of enactment. Thus, several of the explicit comments and formulations often cited in literary history contain specific denigrations of ideas as such and have a distinct anti intellectual flavor to them. In short, showing valued over telling concrete enactment better than expository explanation. The 10th tenet of liberal humanism. The job of criticism is to interpret the text, to meditate between it and the reader. A theoretical account of the nature of reading or of literature in general isn't useful in criticism and will simply, if attempted, encumber critics with preconceived ideas which will get between them and the text. Perhaps in this phrase, preconceived ideas, we get another glimpse into the nature of this pervasive distrust of ideas within liberal humanism, for there seems to be notion that somehow all ideas are preconceived in the sense that they will come between the reader and text if given half a chance. In short, criticism should interpret the text unencumbered by theorizing by preconceived ideas, must trust instead to direct empirical sensory encounter text. The above list contains a series of propositions which many traditional critics would, on the whole, subscribe to if they were in the habit of making their assumptions explicit. Together, ideas like these and the literary practice which went with them are now often referred to as liberal humanism. Now, what is liberal humanism in literature? So, we can define liberal humanism as a philosophical and literary movement in which man and his capabilities are the central concern. Liberal humanism is an approach which focuses on man's abilities and his troubles in the form of empirical experiments, social studies, philosophical research, and artistic creations. Thank you.